So let's talk about our recruiting class. We're going to grade it a bit. Just go over the entire thing, how they fit into our roster. So let's start at QB, Tramel Jones. So here's the thing. We have DJ Lagway on roster. He was a freshman this season, 5-star last class. Tramel Jones, if you just look at it that we don't have that superstar QB already there, and Tramel Jones is the only QB you have, I'd probably put it in like the C range.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Tramel Jones has a high future. Maybe he could be decent for us, But the fact that he's more of like a backup locker room guy, I'm going to give it like a B.
Yeah,
because you're more bringing him in as just the backup. I mean, I don't want to hate on the kid. Maybe he ends up being really good for us, I mean,
you should be developing more than one quarterback at the same time. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with having a guy that you see as being a 2 or 3 year project before he's a potential starting caliber player, if you've got a DJ Lagway.
Yeah, I also know we have Will Griffin in the next class that I account for this. Will Griffin, he's in like the mid hundreds right now, I think. I think he's someone who could skyrocket a bit more up the rankings, and someone I think who you look more to as the guy is the next QB at Florida. Like, you don't look at Emory Jones as a former Florida QB. You look at the Kyle Trask as the former Florida QB. So that's kind of where I see it is, Will Griffin could be that next Florida QB. But I don't want to hate on Tramel. Obviously, 4-star recruit, that's still really good. Maybe he does end up being decent. Then we look at the running back room. So I have a hard time grading it because we're not getting the highest rated guys. We're getting 2 4-stars and a 3-star walk-on. So normally you look at it, to those 2 guys at that range, and you're probably thinking, okay, maybe B-, like 2 4-stars is still good, but neither of them are the highest rated guy. But then I look at Jabbar Jalouk and his history. These are the guys. Trevor Etienne was like 200th ranked, and now really good running back Etienne ended up being. Jaden Ball was in like the 300s. Jaden Ball might be the best freshman running back in the SEC. Well, I'm gonna let you rank this one, grade this one first.
I honestly think you were spot on with B-. I think
okay.
B-. I'd say like B-, like somewhere in that range, because I think like it's not like a group that blows you away, but I think like quarterback, when you contextualize it, like this is a deep room. You got 3 guys that are joining an already deep room, like, and none of them are gonna. I don't think. Unless one of them is like that good that you can't keep them off the field, I don't think we would necessarily expect any of these guys are major contributors next year. Like guys that are touching the ball a lot.
Would you be surprised if a Byron Louis or a Waltez Clark by the end of their career at Florida ends up being like a top 5 running back in the SEC?
Not as I'm probably more so. I'd be less surprised with Byron Lewis. Like, I don't think it's out of the question. I will say, Billy does like to split his carries, so it's
I'm not just talking about stats wise.
Yeah,
I'm talking about like as a player,
Yeah. I'd certainly say like it's within the realm of possibility. I think especially Byron Lewis has a nice ceiling. We'll admit that I haven't seen as much of Waltez Clark.
Because like if you have a player who ends up being who ends up being a top 5 running back in the SEC, it's like you'd give him at least like an A-, right? Maybe a B+. And it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if either of those guys end up being that, with how good Jabbar Jalouk has been at developing and just eyeballing talent. So I'm going to give it a B+, and that's more on Jabbar Jalouk. Just giving him the benefit of the doubt. Because we haven't really needed the 5 stars, Yeah,
and that's fair. It's just like if you look at Jaden Baugh became an incredible running back this year, but I don't think you would have graded him high. Like, I think you got to look at the prospect as what they are as a prospect and just know.
Are they underrated as the prospect though? Because you're telling me
is it evaluation? Is it development? Is it both? I don't know. But they've been good at that for sure. There's no doubt.
That's what I'm trying to point out there. Like, are the recruiting sites missing the evaluation on them?
Yeah, maybe, or maybe Jalouk is just really good at quickly developing these guys. Like, maybe it's probably a little bit of both too.
Because it's Montrell. They had Elijah Mitchell too, I'm not sure he recruited Elijah Mitchell, but ended up being a solid running back in the NFL.
I think he did, but I'm not 100%.
So Elijah Mitchell, Montrell. They had another running back too after him who ended up being like a 1,000-yard rusher for them at Louisiana, then Montreal Johnson, and then Trevor Etienne, and then Jaden Ball, Jacoby Jackson showed flashes. So it's like,
and part of this too is like, as we said, Billy is really good at designing run schemes. Like this is his
very
strength
true
as an offensive coach.
All right, enough on the running backs. Let's get to the receiver room.
Yeah.
So 5-star receiver Vernell Brown, the 33rd ranked prospect on the 247 composite. They also bring in 4-star Deshaun Montgomery. I think I feel like Gator fans don't give Montgomery a lot of credit, especially because we thought we were going to get Dallas Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I think Deshaun Montgomery is a pretty good player in the top 175.
Top 175. Range. Yeah, exactly 175 on the composite.
And then we bring in Muez Tanakura. That's probably like the guy that you look at as like, oh, he's the underrated gem in the class, Mm-hmm. So to give it, so you bring in the 5-star, you bring in the 4-star, you bring in the 3-star, the trifecta right there. This class would have been an A+ if they got Dallas Wilson, because 2 5-stars. That would have been the first time Florida had gotten 2 5-stars since 2003, I think. 2 5-star receivers, but but you just bring in the 1 Vernell Brown, who's a really good legacy commit. Deshaun Montgomery 4-star plus Muiz. You gotta give him a lot of credit for a 5-star. I'm gonna give it A-.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like I kind of had to fight my initial instinct to give it like a B+ because there is a 5-star in there. Mm-hmm. It's just really hard because from all accounts, it sounds like Florida did all the legwork to flip Dallas Wilson shy of getting his signature on a piece of paper. Like, I mean, it sounds like he literally was like telling people that like on both sides that he was going to Florida.
He did. Yeah, he told people at Florida and Miami and Oregon. Oregon flipped him like the last second. Not flipped.
Massive bummer. I mean, that's a guy. He's like 6'3.5", like great size.
Day one,
exactly what this team would have needed, man. That one hurt. So
my personal comparison for him would be George Pickens. George Pickens. So
so that's one. So it's hard for me. Like that's definitely coloring my analysis of this year, just because knowing what could have been.
Yep.
But I think the reason I'll bump it back up to A-, even though that was an extremely disappointing signing day development, is because they kept Deshaun Montgomery in the class, a guy that it really looked like you maybe were going to lose. Probably, I'm sure you would have lost him if you had gotten Dallas Wilson.
That might be the case.
I mean, I have a hard time believing he sticks there because he had Bama and Louisville pushing pretty hard.
If he believes in himself, it's like, hey, who cares what they're ranked? I believe in myself. And
sure,
you get to play with DJ
Michigan lost a quarterback commit when they were going to flip Bryce Underwood. Like that's how this works.
They also just got Kirk Herbstreit's son to commit.
Yeah, I saw that. He's a preferred walk-on, I think.
Yeah. Okay, but let's get to the offensive line. So we gotta look at the whole room and like what we do as a whole here. If we go after into the portal and go get that Corey Robinson, get that really good tackle, it's like, excuse me, it's like, I would have loved to go get Solomon Thomas, but you do have to look at like a budget and stuff. And it's really kind of early to judge just from the recruits alone. Tavares Dice, he can really play both tackle and guard. So that's the positive of bringing him in. You also have Jahari Medlock 3-star and Daniel Pierre-Louis 3-star. Dice 4-star tackle. Offensive line is a position more about the development than it is ranking out of high school, especially compared to a lot of positions. I like Dice a lot, but still too low 3 stars. C+.
Yeah,
I do like Dice a lot, so that's kind of why I do give it the plus.
Oh, if it weren't, I like Dice. I would, because of Dice, I almost made it B- in my head.
Yeah, that's what I was between.
Yeah, I just, outside of him, like Medlock and Pierre-Louis are both just 100% developmental projects. I mean, you never know, but with offensive line, it's very rare to see like guys ranked that low become very early contributors.
Oh, early contributors. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying like you're not gonna neither of those guys are gonna play next year. Like I would be shocked if they were not both redshirt candidates next year.
No, I listened to a lot of podcasts and stuff, and they were talking about Bud Elliott. He was talking about it, and he really likes Daniel Pierre-Louis, which is surprising because I haven't heard much people really credit Daniel a lot. So maybe he is kind of underrated. Which happens a lot.
I'm not saying these guys won't be good players. groups. It's just that there's really only one of them you got that you
Mhm.
could really see making a major impact in the next 2 years,
Yep.
and that's Dice. Thomas would have been that guy. I mean, I'll be honest with you, though. From everything I understand, it sounds like LSU just diverted all of its remaining NIL to go to him. I'm okay with Florida not matching that for an interior offensive lineman.
Yep.
I
think Dice, Solomon Thomas, I'm pretty sure is just limited inside to guard. But I heard Dice can go both ways, which in this modern era where you lose so many players to the transfer portal, you never know where you're going to need someone who can just go, okay, we need you at tackle. We need you at guard right now.
Yeah.
So I do think Dice does have some advantages. Plus, you save money in Solomon to go in portal with. So
a lot of this hinges on, a lot of me being okay with all this hinges on the expectation that they're going to be aggressive in the portal. If they're not, then we're going to be having a different conversation.
Yep. All right. So next, tight end, quick. I'm going to get a tight end C-, D+. Micah Jones. Yeah. I mean, if we go into the portal and do get a Caleb Odom or a Luke Haas, it's like whatever. Then it's like still recruiting class-wise. Tight ends really been very underwhelming for us. So, just
and I'm not even sure it's that much higher. If you keep Gelsey in the class, I'm not sure he was gonna change our rating here too much either way. This is a position where you're just gonna have to portal.
Yep.
Unless just a guy like Tony Livingston is just ready to be that guy, but I'm not sure.
Let's get into the defensive line. The defensive line commits. Do you want to include edge? Or do you want to do edge separately?
Let's do edge as its own category.
Okay, so let's start with the defensive line. You have 4-star defensive lineman Joseph Mbachu, originally from Cameroon, I think, or Nigeria.
I don't know, so I don't want to guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah. Really high upside guy. When Florida first offered him and he committed, he wasn't even ranked.
Yeah.
So in that quick span, he's played one season of football. He's gone up from unranked to a 4-star guy who's going to continue rising in the rankings class. Mm-hmm. The rankings aren't even done yet, so we'll see where he ends up in the end. But really high upside guy. I could see him finishing in the top 200. I don't really think that's crazy to say. So let me check his composite ranking at this exact moment.
It's I got it up.
296. Yeah.
Yep.
So I could see him finishing top 200 and end up being a really good player for us. I mean, I can't say like everybody. Jeremiah McLeod, Georgia really wanted him. He posted a clip from him against Milton, which is a pretty good Georgia school. So I assume they have a decent offensive line where he just ate up their interior of the offensive line and just got in the backfield. I really do like Jeremiah McLeod. Not as much as I like some 5-stars, but for a 4-star ranked 339, I do think McLeod can be a good player for us. I mean, again, Stephon Shivers, I do think has a good potential at nose tackle. Has the size for it. If he can develop those moves and everything, do think he can end up being a good player for us. I'm going to give it a B.
I am going to go B-. Mm-hmm. But I understand the logic behind B. Like, I think the guys that, like, even though there's no one inside the top 250 in this group, which is not great, you'd like to see that. I think that the guys you took, I mean, like, I care a lot more about the fact that Georgia seemed to really want Jeremiah McLeod than I do about Shivers than I do about the fact that they're ranked 339 and 501 respectively.
And then Texas wanted Joseph Mbachu. From what I've heard, they were shocked when we flipped him.
Yeah.
Back.
So I mean, these are certainly guys. This isn't like Mullen era where we're getting guys that are overrated and are not getting highly recruited by these other schools. So that, like, 100% understand that.
Highly developmental guys.
Yes, that is the thing. There's not even a guy like an LJ McCray, who I know is kind of they're like maybe looking more to play the edge, but like there's not that high ranking like guy that you think like he could be a impactful rotational player in year one. That guy's not really there.
No.
So that's why I'm sitting at B-.
Which honestly though, you look at Gerald Chapman, developed a lot of Tulane Z linemen, really good, beat USC that one year in the Cotton Bowl, I want to say. And then you also look at the fact that our defensive line took a huge step this year. in developing Caleb Banks, Tyreek Sapp. So when you have high developmental guys, I mean, Mbachu, we don't know where he's going to end up. We've seen players skyrocket rankings in the final push. So you could talk about Mbachu as a top 200, top 150 level player by the end of class, which would that move him, the D-line class up for you?
Yeah, I think if like Mbachu were to get inside the top 100, top 200, sorry, I'd at least be up where you are, up at a B. So
okay, so then let's get to the edge room, which has an argument to be the best room in the class. You look at Jaden Woods, composite 129 out of Shawnee, Kansas. Not really many people expected us to flip him. Committed to Penn State. I mean, look at Penn State's edges like Abdul Carter and Danny Dennis-Sutton. If they want you and you're one of their top guys, I want them. And then you look at Quincy or Jalen Wiggins. Isn't it Quincy Wiggins? Or I'm thinking the LSU guy.
Jalen Wiggins. Yeah,
it's Jalen
Wiggins.
I think
LSU guy.
Fell a little bit since when we first committed, but still a really high talented player in the top 150 of the rankings. So I think Jaden Woods can end up being a really early impact player. His athleticism on the outside, we probably haven't seen since athleticism-wise, maybe Brenton Cox.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
But Cox couldn't really put it together. And then before him, Grenard wasn't really the most athletic. Probably Ja'Kai Polite.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
You're good. Yeah. No, talk. I mean, we'll add to that while waiting for Tyler to come back. Like, I think this edge group, it's a small group. Only two guys, obviously, but I think both inside the top 150, both guys that I could see making an early impact. I mean, I think Jaden Woods was I'd say for sure outside of Hilton Stubbs and Lagonza Hayward, who we'll get to, and maybe even including them, was the A, most surprising and B, most impactful flip of the cycle. Because, I mean, this is one that it really did not sound like was going to happen, and then it did. And he's a really highly rated player. You're muted, Tyler.
It's not even that it sounded like wasn't going to happen. It was just no one expected it to happen. He visited. I did hear a decent amount of smoke that we had a chance, and then he committed on a Friday. So I was at the ESPN Invitational for the Florida basketball tournament. I checked my phone, and boom, Jaden Woods is committed.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I think Woods is going to be a really good player. His athleticism, former wrestler, which you'd love to see on the defensive line, and it's not that he was a former wrestler turned defensive lineman. He was both. So it's not the potential. He's already building it. So
I think it's cool too. Sorry, you can finish your thought.
No, you go finish what you're saying.
I was saying I think it's cool too that you're going outside of your pipeline to get a guy like that. Also, I mean, it's not like this is a Florida guy, that Jacksonville kid or something like that, going into Kansas to get a guy that Big Ten schools want. Like, that's pretty cool.
Also, interesting thing about Jaden Woods, he did track and field and discus throwing where he won like the state championship. Mm-hmm. So he does have like that torso, like that rotation with his abdomen strength. So which is really good for an edge rusher. I think Woods might be a bit underrated. I'm going to give it an A-. I'm going to say A-. I mean, there's better guys, but I mean, I don't know. Like, they're both, I think, really good.
I think you getting 2 top 150 edges to me is a massive win. I mean, I think. I mean, I was gonna say maybe B+ just because there's only 2 of them, but it's like, do you really even need more than that? Like, do you need those spaces on the roster for that right now? Like, I don't know.
No, like, so I'm gonna go A-. I think Woods can end up being like the highest potential guy in this class. It's probably Jaden Woods.
I'd say the guy that's like most likely to potentially outplay their recruiting ranking, maybe him or Byron Lewis, but yeah.
Well, I think if you're telling me one guy from this class is a top 10 NFL draft pick, and I had to guess it, I would guess Jaden Woods.
Okay, interesting.
That's how I'm looking. I mean, edge rusher, more valuable position.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, edge class. So you're going A- or B+?
I think I agree with you. I think I agree with you on A- there.
All right, the final 2 positions, we're not really going to get into kicker and punter. I mean, number 1 kicker hit a 63-yarder in Arkansas, A+ there, sure.
Sure.
And
Number
punter,
one kicker is awesome.
I don't know much about the punter, so
I don't either. His name is Hayden Craig. He's from Maine. That's about all I got.
Maine. Next Cooper Flag. Let's get to the cornerback. So cornerback's really interesting. Ben Hanks, all-time leader in interceptions in a season in like the Miami area.
Yeah.
Which, you know, Miami has a ton of really good high schools like Booker T and Miami Palmetto. The one that had like Corey Collier, Jason Marshall, James Williams, Miami Central.
Okay, yeah,
it had all of
Palmetto
those guys.
One, but
yeah, it is. So it's like there's been a lot of talented DBs. That's that Miami area is where you have like those athletic, fast guys like receivers and corners come out of. So for him to be the all-time leading interception record in a season, he had like 10. So I think Ben Hanks can be really good. He has really good length. That 6'1". I think he can be a good player. Maybe you would have liked to see us take another.
Yeah.
Like if we would have ended up being able to get like a Naeem Offord, then it would be like an A+ class. You only take one. It's hard to grade when you only take one. I'm gonna let you grade it first.
Well, because like you're just grading the player.
Mm-hmm.
It is tough because it's a top 80 guy. Like it's a really good player.
Again, I think I compared him to like how we saw Kyer Elam and CJ Henderson earlier.
Yeah.
And Jason Marshall was decent as a freshman too.
I'll go B+ here because
B+.
It's just one guy. But that's a strong B+. And like, yeah, it would have been nice to get Naeem Offord. I mean, I'm not sure there was really much. Like, I heard like varying degrees of smoke of how real that could have been. But I never really believed there was much of a chance of Florida getting him.
I heard the Tuesday night before signing day, Florida made their final offer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the offer we're competing with was Oregon and Auburn, and Auburn being the home team, even if it's like the same offer as Auburn. Auburn was like the team he kind of wanted to stay home, but Oregon is just offering a ton of money. But just Ben Hanks, if you were to grade the class like in Ben Hanks as being a first round pick, what would you like grade it? Like, say he's like a top 15 pick, how would you grade it as just one player?
I think that if he's top, I mean that's an A at the minimum.
So I'm also gonna go B+. It's tough because I really like Ben Hanks, but it's just one player. So
looking at Ben Hanks and Vernell Brown for that matter, like is it of any concern to you that 2 of the 4 best players in Florida's class are legacy guys that probably Billy had whoever the coach was had a good chance of getting? We've
seen us miss on these legacy guys a lot under Dan Mullen. Vernell Brown, honestly, I didn't think we were going to get Vernell Brown like a month before he committed. I heard very highly Ohio State was going to get him. And then I started hearing smoke we were leaning for him. So I didn't think we were going to get Vernell Brown at all. And Ben Hanks, Miami really put a pressure on Ben Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
To try to flip him from us. Like, maybe you could say that, but still, like, they're both really good players anyways. And we've seen us miss those legacy guys while under Dan Mullen. I don't really remember much about the Muschamp era, so it's like...
Yeah, fair point. That was a bigger concern I had before you went and got Lagonza Hayward and
get into the safety room.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into the safety room. You start off.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, this was the one where the way it closed was just unbelievable. I mean, no safeties committed right until then.
Nope.
Yeah,
nope.
So I mean, down the stretch, Hilton Stubbs, who had been committed to Miami since I think at least the summer, right?
Well, he committed to USC in the summer, and then I think he flipped to Miami before the season.
Was it right before the season? Okay,
well, maybe like a month
former USC commit flipped to Miami before the season. And then Lagonza Hayward, a guy who Tennessee commit, I hadn't even heard his name until not on signing day, but until like a week or so before, when the smoke started picking up for the Gators. I mean, really big wins. I mean, Stubbs, a guy that Miami really wanted in their class, and Hayward, a guy who decommitted from Tennessee, and Georgia really wanted to flip. Georgia went pretty hard for him, it sounds like. So got a couple recruiting wins over Georgia on National Signing Day. So that was pretty nice. I mean, I think this safety class, I think I'm at a flat A here.
Flat A. So Stubbs, I mean, the fact that they got him back from Miami, Stubbs really did want to be a Gator. Like he said it, he just didn't trust that Napier would even be here next season. That was really one of the biggest reasons. And I know I hear he's a big NIL guy too. So it's like money plus the fact that Billy was really at that point. It kind of seemed unlikely Billy would end up being the coach, even in the offseason, with an win total of 4.5. Yeah. So still really impressive to get him. Tramel's teammate, the 57th ranked player in the class. You know, you don't get many of those safeties. The last time we even got a top 100 safety, I'm pretty sure was Corey Collier, who was like 100, or I think it was like 109. So, and then we got 2 of them, Laganza Hayward. So I heard Hayward really did want to be a Gator. I heard more than that he wanted to be a Gator more than Stubbs. But again, similar situation with Stubbs. He just really didn't trust. I can say for certain that if Billy Napier's job security was 100% safe going into the season, Hayward never would have been committed to Tennessee. I can't say that about Stubbs in Miami or USC. So the staff, proving him on the field, getting both of them. If it was 2 5-star, what do you consider a A+ class? You know,
an A+ class at any position, it's either got to be multiple 5 stars or a 5-star plus multiple high 4 stars.
Yeah. So I'm probably gonna also have to go A.
Yeah.
Because you can't give it that A+. But I think when you base it on the room and how we've recruited safety over the past 10 years, it's really impressive what they did here.
Well, it's weird to evaluate Will Harris as a recruiter here because it's a 3-man DB class, and they're all top 100 prospects.
Yep.
What do you do with that?
Next year maybe is when we evaluate him even more. There's already some top 100 corners that we're looking at and safeties.
Just a few positions. Obviously this was a small class in general, so it shouldn't be very surprising. But a few positions where it's it's not that the guys we got are bad; it's that we got 1 or 2 of them, and that's just.
But then you also look at the room. Class. The corner room's only losing Jason Marshall and maybe Jakeem Jackson. So if you're just bringing in 2 replacements, 1 freshman, 1 transfer, you got the roster. And then the safety room, we do lose more in the safety room. But I also think we need, if we're going to win next season and next 2 seasons, you do need multiple transfers. So it's not even like we're under recruiting the position. It's just we're getting what we can. If Ben Hanks were a 5-star corner, if you were the 15th ranked player, would that be enough to make it an A+ class? Just 1 is
probably not. Honestly, probably not.
No.
Because what we said B+ for him. I think he would probably be been an A if he was a 5-star.
That's fair. If we'll do this after the transfer portal concludes. So let's say we get a starter, a really good corner. And you just grade the overall class because that is ranked individually as well.
Yeah.
Then we might be able to get to if we get the best corner in the transfer portal, then you might be looking at it as an A+.
Yeah. Also, the Gators could still get Onis Konabani from Tennessee, a guy who didn't.
I forgot about Onis. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't sign on Wednesday. He's pushing this out in February. So
he wanted his family to come back he wanted his family to come over from England, but flights got delayed, and so he's delaying his signing until February so that he can do it with his family. Which respect that. It also was hey, maybe not. Now there's 2 months now where other teams can recruit him. So we'll see what happens there.
Look, anytime you're recruiting a guy who's committed to somewhere else and he doesn't sign with that school on National Signing Day, that's a win. No matter what happens.
I think, though, he was going to flip to Florida. So it's he might as well be committed to Florida right now, in my book. That's how I'm kind of looking at it.
I'd say I feel good about him for sure. Him not signing on signing day was as good of a sign, almost as good of a sign as him just signing with Florida outright. So
let's give the recruiting class an overall grade. So I think I kind of want to look at it from multiple ways. It's the 11th ranked class, which, we want top 7, top 5 classes. We want elite classes, which this isn't an elite class. Mm-hmm. But when you compare it to the fact that 3-4 weeks ago, we were ranked in the 50s. Billy Napier, if he can figure out a way to win 9+ games next year, I think we have a decent chance to be looking at a top 5 class. But this class. We got some elite players. I think even the lower ranked guys like Amuiz, Tonakara, Stephon Shivers, maybe they're 3-stars. And I know they like Miles Johnson. Miles Johnson was committed to Bama. We flipped him from Bama. Bama did want him. Wait, did we flip him when they had Saban, or was it Kalen DeBear? I can't remember. Kalen was a coach, I think. Miles Johnson.
Or
linebacker. I think Kalen was a coach. But from what I've heard, Bama did want him. Really high upside guy. I think from their recruiting rankings alone right now, I'll give it a B. But I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking back and we see Vernell Brown end up being a really good receiver. One of those two safeties end up being an all SEC level player. Ben Hanks ends up being a starting level corner. Ty Jackson's a starting linebacker. One of Wiggins or Woods is a all SEC edge. And like Nashawn's a solid receiver. Dice solid offensive lineman. When the running backs develop. And then like Jeremiah McLeod or Joseph Mbachio end up being a really good D lineman. So it's from the recruiting rankings, I probably give it a B. But I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the 4 years from now, we're looking at it and it's like an A.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. Like, there's good players in the class, and it's a small class, and it was intentionally a small class. So it probably would be a top 10 class if it was a closer to full size class.
2 players. You just add Onis Konabani and some other low 4-star that we could probably easily flip.
So it could still end up being a top 10.
Yeah, that's the difference in it being a top 10 class. I mean, I really don't think the difference in 10 and 11 would have changed my grading for it.
Yeah.
I think maybe the difference in 10 and 11 if it was an elite player, like a Dallas Wilson. If we had Dallas Wilson, I'd probably give it B+, A-. Because smaller class, but good elite players. But so what do you give? I give it a B.
I am going to say it's a B- for me.
B-, okay.
I think for me, looking at this class, it's like two things can be true at the same time. Like, first of all, this was a really nice salvage job by the staff on this class. It looked really dire. I mean, it looked like it was going to be a horrendously bad class,
worst
like
in
outside
UF
of the top 45 class. Yeah. And they recovered to have like a more than respectable class. So there's something to be said for that. It's still just not where just frankly, straight up, it's not what we hired Billy to be doing anymore.
No, it isn't.
And that's the problem for me. And I think it looked like there was a kind of a brief moment in time in the last week or so where it looked like we might get there. When there was smoke about Dallas Wilson and Jamie French at differing times, when there was smoke about Solomon Thomas, when there was smoke about even a little smoke about like Naeem Offord, like you don't get any of those guys. Signing day ends up being pretty chalky. No real surprises in either direction. You keep
your guys, though.
You keep your guys. That's what I mean. Chalky. Like, no surprises, good or bad. And then, again, there's something to be said for that. It's just like, I don't know if they're the difference makers in this class, the immediate difference makers. And I know people are going to point and say, like, well, how are they going to recruit when, everyone thought Billy was going to get fired until midway through the season? Like, they did the best they could given that. And like, yeah, that's true. But it's also the staff's fault that was the position that they were in.
Absolutely.
So that doesn't absolve them of the situation they're in. So that's kind of why I'm at B-. Like, I recognize the impressive close. I think getting the safeties was very, very nice work. I think that was that was the most encouraging thing about the momentum that they got at the end, but ultimately it wasn't quite the close that we thought it could be. I mean, I think it was a disappointing signing day no matter how you try to spin it, because it's just not what we thought it had the potential to be. So that's kind of why I'm sitting at B-.
Yeah, I can't really blame you there. I mean, we'll see. Maybe there's a surprise. I mean, I doubt it.
I mean, guys aren't tied anywhere. I think it's worth pointing that out. These aren't national letters of intent anymore. They're financial aid agreements. They can transfer at will. Still, they can leave. So the recruiting battles are not really over, though certainly you would rather have a guy signed than not.
Give Billy credit. I'm pretty sure I heard when he talked to Stubbs, when Stubbs said he's committing, can't remember if it's USC or Miami, he said that Billy told him, like, hey, it's not National Signing Day yet, so Billy's going to keep recruiting these guys, which we could see help us in the portal as well. So,
which is how these guys technically would be treated, by the way, if we got them as portal guys. They wouldn't help right? I mean, am I correct in saying that? That if we flipped anyone that signed
I
on
don't
Wednesday,
know.
they would not count toward our recruiting ranking?
I don't know, because you also look at Jameer Grimesley and Jason Zandamela.
I don't think
They
either of them counted
they
towards our
didn't.
recruiting
Nope.
class ranking.
Nope.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
were transferred. But like they're freshmen on the team. But that's not really that's what you were talking about, not necessarily
but
what I was talking about.
they were guys who signed an NLI and got
Yes.
released from it.
Well,
So that's
you
I don't
also
know how that
they
works
didn't get
now.
released from it. That's why they were transfers. Because DeAndre Robinson from Texas, he got released from his NLI and he counts towards the recruiting class.
Well, sorry, Grimsley got automatically released because
No.
Saban left, right? Does
No,
coaching
he had to
change means
transfer.
anyone can enter the portal immediately?
Nope, they had to. They could enter the portal. They just weren't part of the recruiting class because Robinson
Yeah,
he
that's my
signed
point.
his NLI, but he was still part of the recruiting class. Grimesley signed it but had to transfer.
Okay.
Like all the players that went to Bama, like Julian saying, they had to technically transfer. But then you look at Robinson, he was able to be part of the recruiting class. Zandamela is a bit different because he actually spent like a month at USC, so that one makes more sense as to why he's listed as a transfer. But Grimesley, he didn't get to Bama; he just signed his NLI, and they wouldn't let him out of it.
Gotcha.
So, because any player can transfer, that's the thing. Even if you sign your NLI, which honestly is kind of douchey from Bama. Because like Nick Saban retires, and you're just like, nope, you have to use your transfer now.
Although I don't, it's not even using a transfer. They're unlimited transfers now. So
yeah, that's true. So like Julian Sayans listed as a transfer for Ohio State.
Yeah,
but